What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, joined by the greats in the industry. Jurgen, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We've had a very eventful week of stuff going on, and I'm excited to touch on it.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. And one thing I'm not excited about is sharing an episode with Damien. Damien, how are you?
All right. Well, I'd even come at you yet today, but all right, we're on top that type of energy today. All right, I'm good. I'm good until that comment.
Are you really good though? Cause your boy
I
your
am.
boy Joey D is asleep at the wheel, man. But
It's fine. I had a good day of playing some basketball with some friends. So, but I'm trying to ignore that part of my life right now.
I noticed I wasn't part of that friend group.
It's because you don't come outside.
It's true. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're not going to talk about Damien's social activities. We're here to talk about NFL free agency because that's what started a few days ago actually. Yeah, this is going to be a fully NFL free agency centric episode. No other sports talks because that's what we do here. We disregard everything else. We're going to go straight NFL because that's where the big bucks are. All right. So obviously, as everyone expected, a bunch of movement occurred. People were signed. Contracts were signed, pens to paper, expected stuff, unpredictable stuff, disappointing stuff, but also eye-opening stuff. Would you say a mix of all that, fellas?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. There were definitely a handful of surprising moves, and also with all the free agency stuff this weekend, we're gonna get into it. Like there were still a few cuts here and there because teams had to meet the required salary cap. I think by either Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon, and there were still some cuts that happened. Some that, like I said, we're gonna get to because I can't believe some of the moves that were made the last few days.
I mean, we're all gonna discuss that. But I want to ask you guys before we like kind of go into details. Is it everything you guys expected so far?
No, no, not what I expected. No.
Okay. All right.
In terms of generally speaking, what I thought would happen in terms of potentially certain players and what they would negotiate, it's actually relatively on par for everything I've been reading and hearing about.
All right. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, Twitter's on a frenzy right now with some of the contracts. I mean, with some of the movements that occurred, with some of the teams that players signed. But we're going to get into it. Yeah, so this week, we're all going to discuss some surprise signings, some disappointing signings, some unexpected signings, and also teams that necessarily haven't necessarily made a move that should make a move, in our opinion. Winners, losers, people that should step up. So we're going to start off with the winners. Now, I want to go to Jurgen. Talk to me, bro. Who do you think won this week? I want to know your opinion on who won this week.
Well, a team that I think that's won this week in terms of trying to shore up the other side of the ball opposite they're now going into second year in the league quarterback are the Cincinnati Bengals. I feel that the Bengals going back to last offseason have made a real focus on trying to address the defense and really trying to put some life back into the defense that at one point, if we remember early in the 2010s decade when the Bengals were actually making the playoffs with Andy Dalton and AJ Green leading things, there were some pretty good defensive teams and players around them. And, I think in today's NFL, having a good defense is something that we like. It sounds obvious, but it can really help, especially when you have one side of the ball being led by your second year quarterback who, you know, to help a quarterback, it's not just offensively. Some defense could help too. So I love the moves that they made. Trey Hendrickson on a 4-year deal worth $60 million. He was second in the NFL in sacks last season. I think it's going to be a very interesting thing because aside from Cam Jordan, not really anyone else on that Saints defensive line that's taking up a lot of the offensive linemen of other teams. And so then you transition that over to the Bengals defense. They have still to this point Geno Atkins and DJ Reader mainly for defense for run stopping, but he's still gonna get one of the at least the interior linemen to get at him. So maybe it frees up Hendrickson's for some more one-on-ones. I honestly like that signing because they need more pass rush. I like the secondary signings they made. They made one last season with getting Trey Waynes in the offseason, and I think the two they made this year were good, if not better, at least for one of these guys. Chidobe Awuzie was a solid one. He's a fighter, not literally in terms of fighting other players, but he's scrappy. He's a good solid player that they paid. He could be potentially maybe their nickel corner, but if not their third corner on that team to help them out. But I think their best one was Mike Hilton, the now former Pittsburgh Steelers defensive back. You ask anyone that follow the Steelers, they would tell you that Mike Hilton has been one of the few bright spots in the Steelers secondary that they have been trying to solve for years now, ever since the retirements / departures of some of their great players from earlier in the 2010s decade. And he's been great for them. Overperformed, some would say, and now he gets a nice little contract, 3 years, $24 million, to really help out the Cincinnati Bengals and staying in the division too. Funny enough, so if I gotta pick one definitive winner here, like the Bengals are one of the first teams that comes to mind for me.
All right, Dame, who do you got as your first winner?
Well, I'm gonna leave the obvious one out. I'm gonna go with the Cardinals. But with the Cardinals, kind of free agency and trades. So they obviously made the first big signing of the offseason when they signed J.J. Watt. That was a long time before free agency starts. The reason why he could have been signed before free agency starts is because he was cut. And if you're cut, you could sign way before free agency. So that was why. But you signed J.J. Watt to start the offseason, which is obviously a win for them. Then you sign AJ Green to put a receiver next to DeAndre Hopkins, which you obviously need because DeAndre Hopkins does get doubled a lot, and if you really want to use him to his full potential, you need to put a receiver next to him. I thought they're gonna get one in the draft and maybe trade up for a Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith, but it seems as if they're gonna go the free agent route with AJ Green. The thing with AJ Green is obviously his health. He hasn't stayed healthy for a lot of the past couple years, but when he is healthy, he's one of the best receivers in the league. So they better hope he stays healthy because if he does, it's going to be a scary duo right there with DeAndre Hopkins. And the big one that they made that I think was the best of all of them is trading for Rodney Hudson, the center from the Raiders.
Agreed.
I'm gonna get to the Raiders when we get to the losers, but the Raiders are destroying their offensive line and basically giving these linemen away, and they're not bad linemen. Rodney Hudson is arguably the best center in the NFL, and he's on a pretty good contract. $9 million this year, I think his cap hit is, and $10 million next year. Corey Linsley got paid as the highest paid center in free agency this year, and he got like 15 per year or something like that. So getting Rodney Hudson for a third round pick is an absolute steal. Don't get me started on why the Jets should have got him and been aggressive with it. I'm not gonna get into that yet. But yeah, obviously the Cardinals, they started hot last season, and when they started going down is when Kyler Murray got hit and he got a little bit of an injury. So shoring up that offensive line and getting arguably the best center in the NFL to try to help that out is a win for me. So adding to the defense, the offensive line, and giving Kyler Murray another weapon, I think that puts him as one of the winners so far.
All right, and Jurg, your second winner.
So I definitely like that pick by Dame, by the way, not only with the Rodney Hudson acquisition, but retaining Kelvin Beachum, I think, was also key. They got to keep Kyler Murray upright and healthy for that offense to go, because I think we all saw when he wasn't right, that offense struggled. In terms of my second winner, Dame kind of alluded to one obvious winner that I think we'll both share because I think they're our third one each. But I got to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. They franchise tagged Chris Godwin, and he officially signed it, so no issues there. They were able to retain Rob Gronkowski on a 1-year deal, only $8 million, worth up to 10 with incentives. Ryan Suckup stayed. They were able to sign Shaq Barrett to a 4-year, $68 million deal with 36 guaranteed because Brady restructured his deal at attacking in a 1-year extension with some voidable years. Levante David, 2-year extension, 2-year, 25 mil with some voidable years. Like, this team was legit when they said they wanted to run it back for at least this next year, and they did so. Barrett obviously got his well-deserved contract, especially after that playoff run. Brady and Levante David made the veteran moves, the sacrifices to get guys, and Godwin kind of accepted the fact. And I think this was really interesting. I know some people may critique it because usually in the NFL, the point of hitting the market, and Dame, I think you'll agree with this, guys are supposed to set the market for the next players. For quarterbacks, especially when we talked about Dak last week, you set the market for the next guy. And I think a lot of people probably would have wanted that out of Chris Godwin. But I think he did the smart thing here because the salary cap went down. But with the new the restructured, redone television contracts the NFL is doing, because it's going to be 17 games now, and we're assuming everything's going to be fine come the next NFL season. I think Godwin's playing it smart. Let me sign this franchise tag. No state tax, still being in Florida. I'm going to get good money. I'm going to potentially win another Super Bowl. And then I'll get paid next offseason. And with better chemistry with Brady, means an even better regular season potentially for him. It's a win-win for him and the team. So I got Tampa Bay as the winners. They said they would run it back, and unlike a lot of championship teams, they actually were able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay was one of my other ones too. That was my second winner. Just to quickly go off what you said, like they brought everyone back that they needed to. Chris Godwin got the franchise tag. Shaq Barrett got the extension. I thought it was gonna be the other way around, but regardless, they probably felt more confident with getting extension with Shaq Barrett. That's why they tagged Godwin first. But Levante David is one of the best cover linebackers in the league. You need that, especially obviously we saw in the Super Bowl how hard he made it for Travis Kelce, and you got to think that far ahead sometimes when you have Tom Brady on your team. And Chris Godwin, you just need that number two next to Mike Evans the same way you need a number two next to DeAndre Hopkins. Gronk was going to sign there regardless because he's butt buddies with Tom Brady. But yeah, Tampa Bay, like you said, not a lot of championship teams are able to run it back the way they did. So that's impressive. Yeah, just to go, I'm going to go quickly to my last winner.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most obvious for everybody, to be honest. It's obviously New England Patriots. They went balls blazing into this free agency. No one expected this because they never ever have this kind of spending spree. Let's just put on to start off. They signed the top two tight ends of free agency, Juanu Smith and Hunter Henry. Boom, you have two pass catchers right there. The tight end duo, the same thing they kind of had with Gronkowski and Hernandez that worked for them for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Then you added Judon Van Noy on defense. You added Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne as receivers. Jalen Mills at cornerback, and you traded for Trent Brown because, like I said before, the Raiders are absolutely dismantling their offensive line, and the Patriots used to have Trent Brown on the team, so it kind of works out for them. They're familiar with him. So they literally added at basically every position on their football team. They weren't a bad team last year, and a lot of their defensive players opted out. So if you keep that in mind, you have these guys coming back. You sign Matt Judon, who's one of the best passers in the league. Van Noy, who's coming back. You have Jalen Mills on the outside. You vastly improved this offense on the offensive line and on the outside and with tight ends, and you sign back Cam Newton. So it's an absolute home run for the Patriots, and obviously it sucks because I'm a Jets fan and they're my division. I have to deal with them again. But yeah, there's no more clear winner than the Patriots to me.
I 100% agree with you. If we had to rank these, I think we would all, Chris included, despite Chris always saying that he doesn't really know much about football, I think even Chris would have the Patriots as his number one winner. When you talk about not just the guys they brought in, but some of the contracts that they did this with, and I'm going to get to that later on in this. But like you said, Dame, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, two guys, great pass catchers. Jonnu Smith, a very good blocker when it came to the Titans' run game. So you're bringing that to the Patriots, who I think one of their main goals, if James White isn't going to come back, is Sony Michel needs to be that bell cow back for them. And having Jonnu Smith there to block is going to be a big boon. That skill position group was filled with so many like later round picks aside from N'Keal Harry, that you bring in some talented guys. Nelson Aguilar really having a career year with the Las Vegas Raiders. Kendrick Bourne, I think he's a very underrated receiver. I felt, slightly disappointed because I think Kyle Shanahan should have used him more when a lot of the guys went down in San Fran. He's a guy that I've always felt is very solid, reliable, and I like the fact he's going to get a chance to shine in New England. And like you said, Jalen Mills and Matt Judon, big boons to the defense, especially Mills, because you could play him at either corner or safety, which is big. And then, like you said, Judon, pass rusher, has been great with Baltimore. He gets paid. And Cam Newton on just a 1-year deal, low base salary with incentives that could bring it up there. Like, this team in one offseason, like you said, Dame, they never do this, but because of the cap space they had, because of everything that happened last year, I don't think you could say that this would happen if they still had Brady or if Brady doesn't win the Super Bowl, because I feel a small part of this is that, okay, Brady left. A lot of people are going to try to denounce Belichick, which is the dumbest thing because he helped Brady win those 6. Let's stop saying it's one or the other. It was both. But he definitely had to feel some sort of motivation. And to make all these signings to help this team out, that was big. I want to give one last shout out before we move on to the Kansas City Chiefs. They had, for being Super Bowl losers, they definitely learned their lesson. Signing Joe Thuney, 5-year, $80 million deal, about 32.5 guaranteed, which can actually go up to 48 depending on the third season. And then Kyle Long on a 1-year deal worth $5 million. He's coming back. I think 2 very good signings there to shore up the interior. They have one of their offensive linemen, that the guard that opted out last season because he was fighting COVID on the front lines over in Canada. He's going to be coming back, so you could even shift Kyle Long to right tackle, which means you solve the right tackle spot. Like, for a team that cut their starting tackles just before free agency started off, you got to give them credit for really solving that issue and making sure you're trying to give Patrick Mahomes the best possible chance of staying upright next season. So just quick shout out to them. But I agree with Dame. Number 1, Patriots.
Yeah. I also obviously the Patriots were, I think, the consensus winner, as I think they went all out, to be honest. And I also I've seen some people not giving enough credit to the moves, saying it's oh, they're gonna be really good, but it's just oh, I don't think they're gonna be over the top. I think whatever moves the Patriots make, I do think people need to understand it is the Patriots and it's Bill Belichick, so you have to elevate your perception a little bit. I think that AFC East division is going to be a bloodbath, and I think there's one team that stands out that's not going to be in the hunt, and I'll let Damien take over for that. But yeah, obviously they're winners. A lot of tight end signings, so they're going back to that 2 tight end game plan that they had before, and also yeah, the Chiefs as well. I want to throw that in there. They juiced up that offensive line, man, and I feel yeah, I mean the Super Bowl is kind of the display on end in terms of what they need. And I think they released Fisher. Was that it?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he was the one that was likely getting released because he had torn Achilles.
And he's on a contract year, so.
Yeah, so it made sense. And then you threw the big bucks at Tooney. Yeah, I think Chiefs, man, consensus winners next year. Now that we move on from the winners, let's go to some losers. Now, I don't want to go to Dame yet. I want to go to Jurgen first. Jurg?
So I'm gonna get both my losers out the way really fast, because I know Dame is itching to get to one team specifically. So the first team I'm gonna go after is the New Orleans Saints. Uh, as I've said before, the Saints were going to be over the cap even had all this not happen. In terms of COVID and everything, they were still going to be well over the salary cap's ceiling even without the cap going down because of how much they had put. 2020 was an all-in year for them. And when you go all in and you don't get the championship, this is what happens. You lose pieces and you can't even convince yourself you need to keep guys because you don't have the money or you don't think they're worth the money. So aside from some of the guys, because we noted a couple of names that got cut last week, go back to last week's episode, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't catch that. But they cut a lot of players. They had to restructure a lot of deals. And it led to them being quiet so far. And I have to give them loser because I look at the wide receiving core and I look at the defensive line. Who's there aside from Michael Thomas that you're confident can catch a couple passes from whoever's going to be the starting quarterback next year, whether it be Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill? By the way, Jameis Winston, 1-year deal, about $5.5 million base, could go up, similar to the Cam Newton deal with the Pats. Who's going to catch the football from him aside from wide receiver? Because they cut Jared Cook too. They cut their starting tight end from previous season. So that's not great. I know Alvin Kamara is there too, but at some point bodies break down. I would like it if my other wide receivers could step up or if they could bring someone in, but obviously it's very hard for them to do so. And then I look at the defensive line. Sheldon Rankins had to be let go. Like I said, with the Bengals winning, Trey Hendrickson left. He was the second leader in sacks last season. So many things going wrong for this team. You cut Janoris Jenkins. They cut, I forget if it was, I really hate the fact I'm misremembering it. Their kicker or punter they had to cut. And I'm not a fan of that for the brand. I'm for the brand. So whenever a kicker or punter is cut, I'm not happy about that. But overall, the Saints, I think they're likely missing the playoffs next year. That's for another time. But with all these lack of moves that they've had and who they've had to lose versus what they've been able to scrounge up and keep, I'm not a fan of it. I'm just not. And the other team I'm going to go into just really quick, I know Dame is also going to go into them as well. But the Las Vegas Raiders, which funny enough, I still put them as the Oakland Raiders. So that lets you know everything you need to know about them. They made a couple of minor signings. The only one I actually kind of like is the Yannick Ngakoue signing, which shocked me. I did not expect them to sign there, but he signed on a 2-year, $26 million deal, probably similar to some of the other guys. cash in a little bit now and cash in afterwards. I'm shocked it's a 2-year, not a 1 year, but to each his own. Get your money. Um, so he signed there. Aside from him, like, they keep Richie Incognito, Joy. John Brown signs with them on a 1-year deal. Hankins, Solomon Thomas. They just signed Kenyon Drake today to pair with Josh Jacobs. Like, solid signings here and there, but they dismantled the O-line. They traded Trent Brown. They were going to cut Gabe Jackson and Rodney Hudson before they decided to trade them because, like, it's a whole paperwork thing. So it's like until the paperwork is official, it's not, the move hasn't really been made. So last second they were able to strike up deals and get something worthwhile back to an extent. Like, this Raiders team is just, they have just such a bad offseason so far. And a lot of people had faith in them last year. I didn't understand it. I know they beat the Chiefs, but I was never bought into them in the slightest. And this offseason proved that deal was not a good one to bring in John Gruden. Forget head coach. Like, if it was just the head coach, I'd be okay with it. But they essentially brought him in to be the executive too. Like, I know they hired Mike Mayock, but let's be real. This is John Gruden making the moves. And how can you give anything other than like a D- or F for his tenure with that team? They're not relevant. They're just not. And that is probably the worst thing to be in football, especially because you just move cities. So I got to go with the Raiders. It's just been really, really bad, and I don't see a way of how they get better at it.
All right. Dame, first loser and then main event, please. Thank you.
I hate you. I'm gonna go with the Raiders as my first loser. Basically for reasons that Jurg talked about, but the biggest reason is their offensive line. I have no idea what the fuck they're doing with that offensive line. You have a quarterback that you believe is your franchise quarterback, or you would have went and found another quarterback. So they clearly believe Derek Carr is the future. Why they got rid of Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, Trent Brown, 3 of the best offensive linemen in the league. Not just for their team, not just in their division. They're 3 of the best offensive linemen in the entire league on cheap contracts, and you got nothing back for them. The highest pick you got was for Rodney Hudson, which was a 3. Then you got like a 5 and a 7. Like, who cares? This is gonna help you. Like, I don't get it. I don't know what Derek Carr did to John Gruden. I know during the season there was a thing where Derek Carr called like an audible and it was like John Gruden's wife. I don't know if that was a joke. I don't know if that was serious. I don't know if that. I swear to God, he.
Oh yeah.
I swear,
Yeah.
I forgot her name, but like he like said some whatever. Say her name is Sarah. It's like Sarah Gruden, or some shit like that. So I don't know if that like pinched a nerve or something. And this guy and then John Gruden's like, all right. You want to talk about my wife? Watch what I'm going to do in the offseason. I'm going to get you lit up during the entire next season. I don't know. But terrible. I think it's a terrible offseason for the Raiders. I don't know what they're doing. But my biggest loser...
Before you go, the Raiders have some like funny ass call names. Don't they have James Harden as one of them?
I think... Hold on, wait. We need to give Dame the proper credit for remembering that. That was a phenomenal, like, Dame.
I remember reading that, and I was just like, wait, what? Because I remember reading, it's like, Gruden was like, wait, why are they doing that? So
he was mad confused.
This must have been in the group chat, bro. Man, that's jokes.
And also, like, real quick on Dame's point, like, Gruden has not been a fan of Carr ever since he took the dang job. So it's like, maybe this is his weird way of getting revenge of Derek Carr, like, because like Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson are making big deals of wanting to get the hell out of there. Like, Derek Carr's not. He's fine being a Raider, and Gruden's like, okay, you still want to be here? Make it harder for me? Copy. You're going to deal with what Andrew Luck had to deal with for Indy in so many years. Have fun getting sacked 60 times a game, bro. Like,
here's the thing. Like, John Gruden has one of the most secure jobs, no matter how bad his team is going to be, because he signed a 10-year deal.
Thank you.
Like, it's like him, Belichick, and McVay, and they have like the most secure jobs ever. And John Gruden is not because he's good, not because he wins. It's because he literally signed a 10-year, $100 million contract. And for a coach, that's absolutely insane. So he can literally do whatever he wants, and he's gonna be like, "You're not gonna fire me, so I'm gonna do what I want."
All right, guys, main event time. This is what me and Jurgen are here for anyway. All right, Dave, your biggest loser.
My biggest loser is my New York Gangrene Jets. God, this has been the worst nightmare of an offseason I could have possibly thought of. Before this offseason, I was one of the biggest Joe Douglas fans, one of his biggest advocators. I was like, he had a great offseason last year. Like, give him time. He's highly regarded. He's came from all these great organizations. I'm like, he's going to go into his offseason with all this cap space. He's not going to do anything stupid. He's going to go for the offensive line, which is our number one need. He's going to get it done. He's going to either sign a receiver because we need speed. He's going to sign a speed receiver to give whoever our next quarterback is weapons. He's using Sam Darnold to get leverage, and he's going to get the highest possible draft pick he could possibly get for him. He's just going to do a great job this offseason. That's exactly what I thought. But this offseason's been an absolute shit show. Joe Douglas, since the first day he got here, he's talked about how he wants to shore up this offensive line. In the year and a half that he's been here, he's got one offensive lineman that's a legit starter, and that's Mekhi Becton, and honestly, he just landed in his lap. So I'm not even going to give credit for that. Biggest issue, offensive line. Guess how many offensive linemen they signed this year in this offseason? 0. Oh, no. They signed one guy today. That's like his 8th man on offensive line for 5 offensive linemen. So congrats to him for signing Dan Feeney or Freeney, whatever his freaking name is. I don't care. Congrats. You really shut off the offensive line, and Sam Darnold or whoever next quarterback is going to be real protected. Going to Sam Darnold, I don't know who this guy thought he was. I don't know if he thought he was the smartest guy in the room, but holding on to Sam Darnold has obviously been terrible because you could have traded him for a 2 as reported in the beginning of the offseason, but no. You want to hold on to him and wait till all these quarterbacks have their pro days to make a decision on him. Sam Darnold has been honestly average, if not bad, so far in his Jets career, and I do not think it's all his fault. I do think he has the potential to be a great quarterback, but it's not with the Jets. He needs to change the scenery where he has better weapons, better coaching, better offensive line, and just an overall change of scenery to clear his mind. Because with the Jets, it has not been working, and with the way Joe Douglas is operating, it's not going to be working. So they should have got rid of him earlier, got the highest possible draft pick that they can. Now, all these teams like the Colts, the Bears, the Washington football team, all these teams have gotten their quarterback for next season. So who really needs Sam Darnold now? Nobody. So now they're either going to be screwed with keeping Sam Darnold, or they're going to have to trade him for like a 5th-round pick, which is obviously not what they wanted. So hang on to Sam Darnold way too long. That's a big, big mistake when you could have got a lot for him in the beginning of the offseason. Going to the wide receivers, you needed not only a number 1 receiver, but you need to add speed to this team. Nobody on this team, I don't remember the last time the Jets had a speed at the wide receiver position. Percy Harvin maybe back in the day, but he was already broken down, so tells you a lot about that. Denzel Mims is decently fast, but he's not a burner. Jamison Crowder is obviously not fast. You had Rashad Perriman, who played half the season, and then when he did play, you saw these kind of bursts that fast receiver like that could have for you. Curtis Samuel and Will Fuller were the top 2 guys on the free agent market that you could have got that were burners, that could have really blown the top off of defense, which you need not only with a young quarterback, but any kind of quarterback. Did the Jets go get any of them? No. What did they do? They got slow Corey Davis, who was a 1st-round pick before, but he has not lived up to his hype. What did they pay him? They paid him $12.5 million per year. Guess what Curtis Samuel signed for? $11.5. So you paid more for a guy who's worse than a guy who signed with the Washington football team for less. Not only that, but Curtis Samuel is literally from New York. So you have that connection there, and you have that advantage that he went to high school in New York. And by the way, I played his team in basketball. Just putting that out there. So, yeah, I kind of am. So Curtis Samuel, not only is he fast, but he plays the slide, he plays the outside, he plays running back. You could have put him literally anywhere in that new offense. And knowing Mike LaFleur, coming from San Francisco, they like to use their receivers in different kind of positions. So Curtis Samuel is really the perfect fit for this team. But no, obviously Joe Douglas isn't going to do the right move. He goes and signs Corey Davis, who got basically overpaid for 3 years. Going to the defensive side, their biggest weakness is cornerback for years. I don't remember the last time they had a cornerback since Darrelle Revis. They signed Tremaine Johnson a couple years ago, and that was an absolute disaster that they needed to get rid of right away. They've signed one quarterback this year. That's a special team specialist. So he's not even a cornerback. He's a special teamer. That's who they signed so far at cornerback. Kyle Fuller just got released. Do I think they're going to sign him? Of course not. So I'm not even going to bother going to that. But Dory Jackson's out there. Patrick Peterson got signed to the Vikings. You have so many cornerbacks out there that can help your defense. Richard Sherman, perfect. With Robert Saleh, you have that connection. Is Joe Douglas doing anything? No, he is absolutely not. He's sitting on his ass, sleeping, doing whatever he is doing. So, just going on the overview. Offensive line, biggest need on the offense, and Joe Douglas has said since day one he's going to fix this offensive line. He did absolute shit with that. They still have the same garbage offensive line from last year, and with the way it's looking, it's going to stay that way. You hang on to Sam Darnold for too long, now you're going to get either a shit pick or you're going to be stuck with him, and it's terrible. You signed no speed at wide receiver, and you still didn't get that number 1 receiver that you need either for Sam Darnold or for your rookie quarterback. And on defense, you didn't fill your biggest need, which is cornerback. Overall, I'm done with Joe Douglas. He can do what he wants. I'm no longer supporting him. I don't see how he could possibly turn this around. After day one, I was like, all right, I'm going to give him a couple days, see if he could possibly turn this around. But after seeing Fuller go, after seeing Curtis Samuel go, after seeing no offensive lineman sign, after seeing no cornerback sign, I'm done. He can do what he wants. I'm no longer supporting him until maybe next year. I'll rethink it. But I might not even be a Jets fan next year. I might hit free agency in the fandom department if this
Ooh.
continues.
Ah,
There goes that.
I'd say that segment delivered, Jurgen. Before we go on to Jurgen's thoughts on that, I mean, obviously, I can't say I feel as strongly as Damien does here because he's more of a Jets lifer. I'll say this though. Yeah, I also had faith in Joe Douglas coming into this offseason. You know, I thought the Jets would be big players in Joe Tooney, but of course he made the smarter decision going with the Chiefs. So I can't fault him specifically. They went very very micro
Conservative.
moves, very conservative
Here's the thing.
moves. Very,
Let me say something. Sorry. So this year the cap is obviously lowered, and the Jets and Jaguars had the most. This is the year you have the advantage because next year when the cap booms, every single team is gonna have cap space, even the good ones. You see, like the Saints and the Rams and the Eagles and all these teams are trying to get under the cap so they can obviously sign whoever they can. But next year they're not gonna need to cut guys to get under the cap, so they're gonna be able to sign whoever they want, and that's when they're gonna have an advantage because obviously players are gonna for the same amount of money or rather go to a winning team. So this is the year when the Jets had all this uh, salary cap space that they can sign whoever they want. They need to be aggressive because if you're not aggressive, you're gonna be ass next year, and then you're gonna have absolutely no advantage going into next free agency, and no one's gonna want to sign with you. So this is the year to if you got to overpay a little bit, you overpay because you're gonna be if you're asked next season, you're gonna have no free agents. So I really thought this was the year they needed to be as aggressive as possible because of the salary cap boom next year, which would put them at a disadvantage compared to these other good teams.
yeah, well put, Damon. I think, I mean, I think there was rumors that they were talking to Juju. I think that died out because they made another signing. I can't put my.
Oh my God! Don't get me Keenan fucking Cole. Oh my God! What kind of pointless freaking? Oh my God! What a pointless signing. What is this guy gonna do? Play a fifth wide receiver for $5 million? Jesus Christ! I completely forgot about that. What a pointless signing. God.
Man, Joe Douglas is on some Danny Ainge shit right now, guys. But yeah,
Oh
I
my
mean,
God,
look,
he is.
I think if like, because I the Sam Darnold, I don't know what's gonna go on with that, right? Because if you trade away Sam Darnold, if you trade away Samuel, and I'm assuming you go quarterback in the first round, right? It's either gonna be Zach Wilson or Justin Fields or whatever. The problem is you're still stuck with the same problems in that quarterback is gonna be having death threats from like no O line, so they're gonna be fighting for their life. So it's just like you're not really fixing anything. You're just kind of resetting the financial aspect of it, right? Where you don't have to pay Darnold. But the thing is, the O line still sucks. Now, in terms of them not making moves in the O line field, maybe they're leaning towards Sewell in the draft, which honestly, like, I don't have that much faith in Sam Darnold, but I'm not completely against picking Sewell at the second pick and then keeping Darnold. But yeah, Jurg, what do you have to say to that, and what do you have to say about Dame's perspective in general?
I just want to
Quickly, let
say
me
for the,
just. Oh,
go
Go
Dame,
ahead, Dame.
go Dame, go.
no, no.
It's your episode, bro.
I'm just gonna say, yeah, just saying that if the Jets do keep Sam Darnold, I mean, no, if the Jets trade away Sam Darnold and get that rookie QB, like you said, he's gonna have no offensive line, he's gonna have no receiver, so you're literally stuck in the same predicament you had with Sam Darnold, where you don't know if he's the guy. Sam Darnold's still young and he has a lot of potential, so you still don't know if he's the guy. But if you do keep him, you address none of the needs that you needed to. Even if you jab Penny Sewell, that'll help one part of the offensive line, but there's still three parts on the inside, your left guard, center, and right guard, who are absolutely awful. So you don't solve that. But if you really were going to go that route, you should have went and got a number one receiver or added speed to this offense to give Sam Darnold that weapon that he needs to be more explosive. That's all I'm saying.
That's what what else can I say to add to that? Like that was magical. No, at the end of the day, Dame's right. Like we can't say he's wrong. And Joe Douglas was a guy that I think a lot of people wanted to have faith in. And this offseason just hasn't delivered. Like the Corey Davis signing, I'd never been sold on Corey Davis, honestly. So I was shocked to see that. when Dame really pointed out like the Jets could have made a play on Curtis Samuel and he signed with Washington for just a very slight amount less, but still less. That that's not good. That's just not good. And then you even think about like the Vegas Raiders, the trades that they ended up making for Rodney Hudson and Gabe Jackson. Did Joe Douglas not call them to try to make a trade? Because I know like one of my friends who's a Jets fan, like he's always told me like Joe Douglas values draft picks. I don't care how much you value a draft pick. If I could trade a third or a fourth away to give me a Rodney Hudson or Gabe Jackson, I'm doing that. Heck, can I get both of them for one of my second round picks? Because again, I'm doing that to help the interior of this line. Like, I don't understand what the process has been. I don't know if Douglas has been like trying to negotiate with other guys, and we're not going to know that obviously until things progress even further. Because this is just the first week of free agency. Like, more signings are to come. Like, I'm probably half of next week's show is going to have to be on free agency signings because there's still some solid names out there. But at the end of the day, like, I can't blame Dame for having them at all. He's just not, he hasn't done well. He hasn't performed to a better level than what Adam Gase essentially was. I would like to just for the fun of it, because of how Dame saying Keelan Cole's name, we're trying to be on the same level of when Draymond Green said Rodney Magruder's name a while back. I would just like to see when Adam Schefter reported that Cole was signing with the Jets. I just want to read one comment under that from a random fan. He said, "Man, Jets fans, y'all are getting a hard worker and an outright competitor. Cole is fast, and he has some good hands and runs his routes perfectly. I will never forget the one-handed catch he made against the Pats in 2018. But y'all have a baller. Best of luck."
Jesus
All right.
fucking Christ.
I read it just to see Dame's reaction.
Oh my God.
Let's move on.
Yeah, please.
Okay, all right. So I guess we said our winners and losers. Yeah, but I want to ask you guys, like, what teams? I wouldn't say are you disappointed in, but what teams do you think should be making a move soon?
Well, we know one of Dame's.
Yeah. That's why the question's a little bit suspect because we kind of answered it. But like, what teams do you guys think should kind of up the ante in terms of just like making a move because they've been so silent so far?
Uh, if I may go really fast, like I think what we can do to differentiate this is like there could be a difference between losers and step up, to where the two teams that I have made a handful of moves here and there, but they could still do a little bit more, especially with the young quarterbacks they have. I have the Baltimore Ravens and the Los Angeles Chargers. Like Dame mentioned earlier, the Los Angeles Chargers inked Corey Linsley to a very rich deal, 5 years, $62.5 million, to lure him away from Green Bay, to go from the snow to the sunlight of Los Angeles. So probably wasn't hard on that pitch. But that's really their main signing of note. They kept Money Badger, Bagley, their kicker, for the brand. So again, I'm a fan of that. But going into the other stuff, aside from Linsley, they haven't done anything. I was really shocked they ended up keeping Mike Williams for his $15 million cap hit. I would have thought they would have cut him just because he has not proved to be worth that cap hit the last 2 years. I think it's become guaranteed if it hasn't already. Try to cut that as quick as you can. But the skill position group, even though Justin Herbert made some magic happen with lower tier guys like their third, fourth, and fifth stringers, I'm just not a fan of not having enough depth at receiver. I think this season has shown us in 2020 you can never have enough depth at a position, so you have to keep adding to that. And aside from Corey Linsley, like I like the fact they went offensive line with their main signing, but just help out your rookie QB because you lost Hunter Henry. They just signed Jared Cook on a 1-year deal today, but still you could do more. And then we're talking about weapons. What are the Baltimore Ravens doing? Like, we all literally said the number one thing for that team this offseason is getting a proper number one weapon for Lamar Jackson. If I'm the Ravens management, how have you not thrown money at Kenny Golladay at this point? Because Chris Godwin's agreed to his franchise tag. Allen Robinson has agreed to his franchise tag just now. It's been reported. Free Allen Robinson once again. Like, how are you not throwing money at Kenny Golladay? How are you going to let an offseason go? The most critical offseason, because you need to pay Lamar Jackson soon. How are you not giving him a bona fide number one weapon? I do not understand that. This team is not going to go farther than the divisional round of the playoffs until For one, Lamar Jackson finally gets a real weapon. You can kind of forgive letting Matthew Judon go because pass rushers come and go. They'll find their next guy if he's not on the roster. Like, they'll be fine. There's maybe one or two guys still out there that they could go after. Like we've mentioned earlier, there's still plenty of free agents out there. But how are you not getting Lamar Jackson, a bona fide guy? Like, I'm not talking about maybe, I'm not talking about potential. I'm talking about stud. Kenny Galladay is good. He's underrated because Detroit does that to everyone, but he got out of there with before having to retire to get out of there. Like, throw money at him. What are you doing? So I'm disappointed in those two teams. Like, they're not doing enough to help their young QBs. The Chargers did a little bit with Lindsley, but they could do more. And Baltimore, what are you doing, man? Like, you saved money. You didn't want to pay Judon for a reason. We all assume that's to give Jackson help. Get him someone, anyone.
Yeah, I'm kind of disappointed the Ravens haven't given Lamar any help because they know what their weakness is, man. They know what it is, right? They don't have
They should
help on the receiver. Yeah, I don't know if they're on some Jets shit right now, but yeah, Dame, go ahead, bro, take over. Yeah, you can bring us home with your takes.
Yeah, so like you said, the Ravens, they haven't got their number one receiver. Part of it, to be honest, I think is because wide receivers don't want to go there because of the kind of offense they have. I think that plays a big factor into it because they play such a run heavy offense with Lamar and their running back. So if I was a top flight receiver, I wouldn't want to go there because how am I getting the ball if you're running the ball 8 out of 10 plays? But quickly, just the two teams that I think should be doing more. Uh, it's the team with the number one overall pick that's going to get Trevor Lawrence. They have the most cap space. They had more cap space than the Jets, and they currently have the most cap space left. They've added Shaquille Griffin to that defense, and they added a couple other defensive pieces. But when you have a player like Trevor Lawrence coming in, you need to shore up the offensive line and get them weapons. They haven't done anything. They franchise tag Cam Robinson. That's fine. But the rest of your offensive line is garbage as well, and you've done nothing to improve that to protect Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is an all-time generational kind of prospect, but if he's getting hit and hit and hit all season, he's gonna eventually get hurt, and you're not gonna be able to put him on the field. Of course, not adding weapons also hurts because if you have no time and you have no weapons, you're not gonna be successful. The other team, big shout out to Gallo. Your Cowboys have been relatively silent. I told you they're not going to do anything because they signed Dak to a long term deal. But as I'm looking here, they still have a few $1 million in cap space, and they've done nothing to solve that absolutely horrendous, historically horrendous defense. They do have the 10th pick in the draft. I know a lot of people want them to draft Kyle Pitts, specifically Gallo, but I think that's a moronic move, especially because they've done absolutely nothing in free agency to improve that defense. So they better use that 10th pick on defense, or you better do something to turn around free agency and help that defense. Because if not, you're gonna be giving up 45 points a game, and Dak Prescott's gonna lose a lot of games. And
Why add another weapon? Like, to your point, Damon, why would you add another offensive weapon for that team? You have Cooper. You went with Lamb last year instead of a weapon. You still have their third receiver. I'm forgetting his name off the
Michael
top.
Gallup.
Yeah,
Yes,
Gallup.
Gallup. Your tight end situation, I know it's not ideal, but when your cornerback situation, when it's essentially the three of us are lining up in your secondary, that's a problem.
Literally, I think someone's insecure about the abilities of Dak Prescott. That's my opinion. But
Jurg, you have any final comments on Dame's take, or are you good?
No, I think we can move on really fast to our last couple segments.
Do we have a last segment?
Like best contract.
best contracts riskers.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys go ahead. Jurg, you start off.
Yeah, I'll just go really fast. I'm gonna say the best contracts are the New England Patriots, not just because of the players they're bringing in. The low amount of guarantees on a number of these deals, the way they structured them, like the Pats will be able to get out of like if any of these deals go wrong in the first year, especially the Jalen Mills one, because there's only $9 million of guaranteed money on that contract. They don't have to worry. They do not have to worry at all with that. So they'll be able to get out of that contract. So some of the bigger deals like Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, and Matthew Judon, like obviously, I think for what those guys are gonna do for Jonnu Smith, I think the way I see it, Jonnu Smith will help stretch the field a lot and block. Henry will be that more intermediate guy for Cam or whoever's the quarterback. So I think that's a perfect tight end thing in terms of them. And honestly, like combined, what their cap hits are, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Like both of them are getting like somewhat up there in terms of tight end money, but in terms of their talent, like I still want to call those good contracts. Like just overall, the way the Patriots handled their contracts were one or two of them. I think Aguilar's only a 2-year deal. I don't know what the guaranteed money is, but could they get out of that if he has a bad year? Maybe. Kendrick Bourne's on a pretty cheap deal for if maybe being a number 2 or 3 receiver, depending on if N'Keal Harry finally takes that next step. I love their contracts. I really do. They filled needs at good value, and if one or two of them don't go well, they can get out of them without it being that bad. Like, how can you not say those aren't the best contracts?
So the two best contracts I have is just going back to the Jets. Will Fuller and Curtis Samuel, I have them as the best contracts. Will Fuller signed a 1-year deal. I don't think they came out with the terms yet, but regardless, just signing him to a 1-year deal. If you want to, I know he had a little drug incident, so signing him to a 1-year prove it kind of deal is a steal. Jets League could have signed him for 2 years. I'm sure he would have went there with the extra year guarantee. But Sleepy Joe is at it again, and Curtis Samuel. Yeah, Curtis Samuel, like I said, I think is a Swiss Army knife, and watch for the Washington football team to get him and put him next to his old freshman college roommate, Terry McLaurin. I think is a big win for them. He, like I said, he could play the slot, he could play the outside, he could play running back, and reuniting him with Terry McLaurin and with Ron Rivera, his old head coach. I think is a win for 3 years, $34.5 million. He's getting paid less than Corey Davis. So yeah, I think that's another steal of a contract for with the Washington football team.
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I really do. Chris, if you don't mind, I'm gonna really quick just get to our last segment here in terms of predictions. In terms of where certain guys could go, damn, I kind of hate to say this because it's kind of breaking your heart on this one. But as you mentioned earlier, a couple cornerbacks have hit the free agency market recently, with Adoree Jackson, recently Kyle Fuller being cut. And as well as there's still some solid guys out there. Richard Sherman's out there. Casey Hayward is out there. Like, there's still very solid cornerbacks out on the market. I think Adoree Jackson, or at least one of those guys, is likely heading to the Washington football team. They need to fix their secondary still. They need a little bit more talent in there. You add one of those guys, that's going to be big time. Especially, I don't understand. You know what? Honestly, low-key loser in this. Tennessee Titans, I don't know what the hell they were doing with cutting Adoree Jackson. Like, I know I was arguing the whole 5-year option thing with Mike Williams. Mike Williams has underperformed 2 seasons in a row. You try to tell me with a straight face Adoree Jackson has not been a key piece to that Titans secondary. Like, don't even start. So the fact that they cut him is just, it's ridiculous. And I hope he signs somewhere else to make them pay for that. Potentially with Washington, because again, young, like, you could sign him to a long-term deal now and not regret it, because he's a young corner, he's a good corner. Like, I don't get it. Aside from that, various good players still on the market. Mitchell Schwartz and Alejandro Villanueva are 2 solid tackles you could get. I know Dame was upset with the
I
offensive
know
line
he's not
stuff
going to
earlier.
get them.
Just out of curiosity, if the Jets need a right tackle, you can sign one of those guys potentially, because they're out there. I think a contending team that needs some O-line help could get one of them. And with how weird some of these signings have been, like the Raiders just shipped off dang near the whole O-line. Maybe one of them will go there. Like, I feel like a lot of this point, it's going to be beggars versus choosers. And I think, James Conner and James White, both interesting guys. I think one of them, maybe James White, ends up in Tampa Bay because his connection with Brady. But that's all the reports that I've been seeing and hearing. And it just makes sense because the pass catcher, he's the perfect complement to Rojo. Leonard Fournette hasn't re-signed there yet. I don't think he will. I think there is going to be a team that pays him at least a pretty good 1-year deal. So those are my predictions as of this point.
My number one prediction is the Jets will do jack shit for the rest of this offseason. But going to the corners, the Broncos are being really aggressive with Kyle Fuller, I heard. So that's kind of a decent landing spot, especially since they released AJ Bouye. That's what the hell is so funny.
I got the quote from Gruden's wife.
Okay.
Oh my god.
All right. Anyways, so my prediction for Kyle Fuller will be the Broncos. My prediction for Kenny Galladay, going back to you guys were talking about, I know he's met with the Bears yesterday and he's meeting with the Giants today. I think it's inevitable that he's going to sign with the Giants. There's just been too much noise and traction there. So that's going to be my 2 predictions. I think Kyle Fuller goes to the Broncos, and I think Kenny Galladay is going to sign with the New York Giants.
All right, is that it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna read the article. Hold up. Quote from the Bleacher Report: The lack of fans in attendance at Bank of America Stadium, the Panthers' home field, because of the pandemic, allowed television viewers to hear clearly as Carr yelled out, "Cindy Gruden, Tiger Woods," before playing the first quarter. And then it says, Derek used my wife's name on TV in one of his audibles, so it must not have been too loud in there. Gruden jokingly told reporters, "I'm still trying to figure out why Cindy Gruden's name came up during the game. I've got to look into that."
Clearly, he's looked into it and got rid of all his
Fucked
protection.
up that O-line.
Punished him.
Well, that's it for this week. I'm pretty sure next week there'll be moves that transpire as we head into the next episode that will occur next week. But yeah, guys, phenomenal episode. I think delivered on all fronts. This is clearly the Damien episode. Yeah, guys, both wonderful jobs. Dame, I'll give you credit this time because that was box office content. Guys, we'll be back next week. Thank you for sticking around as long as you did. Until next time, peace.
Take care, everyone.
Peace.